this computer. All right. So this evening we are having Miss Lorraine McKnight join us to have a conversation about professional etiquette. Many of our scholars are headed to a conference this week, and so this is a discussion to help them navigate many of the uncertainties that come with understanding etiquette. And so I'll turn it over to Lorraine, who can introduce herself and move forward with the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. I am thrilled that you invited me to do this presentation. I'm an etiquette geek. I was at Eastern Michigan University for 18 years and retired recently. But I still do this presentation. I did it with EMU students and outside of the university. So I was thrilled when you asked me to help prepare the students that are going to the McNair Scholar students that are going to their first conference. This might be seen by people who have already gone to several conferences, but it's good to know what etiquette is and how it impacts your success. And so, with that, I'll get started. So, what is etiquette? It's a word that we hear quite often. Don't always know what it means, but it's a customary code of polite behavior in society, and often it's among members of a particular profession or group. So within your family, there might be one type of etiquette where everybody goes in the refrigerator. Um, um, People can start eating before the meal is served. That might be polite etiquette in your home or with your larger family group. But in another setting, the etiquette might be different. So we're going to talk about dining etiquette, social etiquette, and what you might need to know to be successful at your conference or when you're invited to a networking event on campus or off. So etiquette and manners go hand in hand. And we often hear that manners are taught, self-taught, or they're instructed by your family. But there's several different ways in which you'll use your etiquette. It could be in a social setting. You're dining with friends. You've been invited to maybe a significant other's home, someone you're really interested in. They're inviting you to their home. And so you want to display good etiquette when you're meeting with people that you don't know and may not know the customs or the culture in that environment. And so we'll start first with dining. There's formal dining, and it's where you come into a room and everything is set up. And you often see this at a formal situation like a sit down wedding, a very an event that you might go to on campus. The MLK celebration on campus this year was a formal sit down dinner. They brought the plates to the table, and you have multiple silverware. So let's talk about what the multiple silverware looks like for a formal place setting. There is a bread bowl, a bread plate rather, up to your left, the drinkware and silverware, and then the plate. And there might also be something called a charger. And I have one to show you as an example. You might have seen these on table settings, and a charger looks like this. It's often underneath your dinner plate, and the dinner plate will go on top. Maybe there's a salad bowl or a soup bowl on top. There might be a napkin, like in the picture, but this charger is something you don't eat on. It's usually plastic or some other type of material. I've seen them in stoneware and things like that. But the charger is not moved, it stays on the table at all times. The server will remove your plate or soup bowl or your salad bowl, but your charger always stays on the table. So in this place setting, it's complicated and it might be a little confusing. I'm going to tell you about some good tricks to use when you're sitting at the table. Now, for your setting, going to a conference, you might not see a place setting this fancy, but I want you to be aware of what's shown here. The bread plate is to your left and your drinkware is to your right. And that's the way it always is. So when you sit down, there's usually a water glass, there might be wine glasses, and there might be a cup and saucer that could be up in the upper right hand corner or is off to the right of your silverware. Either way, that cup and saucer can stay there wherever they've placed it, pre-placed it. If you know you don't drink coffee, you can automatically turn your cup over so the server knows not to ask. They may still ask, I'm just being polite, but they'll know not to assume that you're getting coffee. So you can turn the cup over um, like this. So this is the cup and saucer that could be on your table. You're going to flip it over and you'll leave it where it is. You don't have to move it on the table. So be mindful that this is a signal to the server that you don't drink coffee, but you may want tea if they're serving it. To the right of the plate is a soup spoon, a salad knife, a fish knife if you're going to be served fish. And you'll notice there's a point on the end, and that point is to lift the fish away from the bone. So you still might have to use your hands, but you do have a fish knife to help you manipulate that fish. There's a dinner knife. On the other side, there's a salad fork, a fish fork if you're going to be served fish, and then a dinner fork. Now, the server knows what the food course is. When you get to a place when there's a formal dining table setting, they already know what the food is that's going to be served, and so they know what silverware to provide. But as an example, you may decide, I want steak instead of the chicken. They will bring you a separate knife, which is a steak knife, which has a serrated edge that help you cut the steak. If there's other types of items on the menu that you might get and the silverware that's sitting at your place setting will not do, the server will bring that to you. There is a napkin that you can see and a place card. Now, place cards are used to tell you where to sit. Your name will appear on it, your last name, first name, or just your first name. You don't move those. The place card could be at the top of the place setting or it could be on top of the napkin, but that tells you where to sit. And if you've ever been to a formal event, there's usually a cue or a reference board or someone leading you to your table, and then you sit where the person has asked you to sit. Now, when you sit down, the first thing you'll want to do is, I apologize, I didn't put this on my lap before I started. If you're using a cloth napkin, you're going to take that folded edge and put it against your body on your lap. So it goes on your lap. And that way, if you're eating something that you want to wipe your mouth with, you can lift up the unfolded edge of the napkin and then wipe your mouth. You never spit on your napkin. You never put food in your napkin. It is just for dabbing your mouth. Once you dab your mouth, maybe you got a little barbecue sauce on the corners of your mouth or some salad dressing, then it goes back on your lap and it stays on your lap until later. And I'll tell you more about that in a few minutes. Oh, one more point. If you are under 21, listen, if you are under 21, you never, ever, never, never, ever drink in a social setting, a business setting, unless you're with family. But in a business setting or a networking event, you never drink. Now, if you're over 21, I suggest you don't drink either because alcohol makes us feel like we can handle difficult situations, but it does not. It often dulls the senses, and we find that later that we've done things or said things that we shouldn't have. So I recommend just ignoring the red wine glass, the white wine glass, and just concentrating on soft drinks or iced tea. And also above your plate is your your dessert spoon and your dessert fork. If you see a place setting where those two items are there, you know you're getting dessert and you can make a choice as to whether you want to eat it or not. And then this could be really complicated, but I'll give you a clue as to how to handle it. This is another picture of a place setting. And the next setting is informal. Now, the informal place setting, as you can see, has less silverware, less items on the table. It's not so confusing. There could still be a bread bowl up here on the left-hand side, but you're often going to have a water glass or other soft drink glass, and then maybe a wine glass. A knife closest to the plate, a teaspoon to add sugar to your tea or your coffee, and then a soup spoon. And on the left-hand side is your salad fork and your general fork, and then your plate. There could be a charger underneath, but this is just a serving plate. And then the napkin on top. And napkins can be anywhere. It can be on the left side or the right side, wherever the server chooses to put it. But on this example, it's on top of the plate. So again, when you sit down at this table setting, you take the napkin and immediately put it on your lap. showing the server that you're prepared to eat dinner. You might not eat right away. Maybe there's a speaker or there's other things that are happening, but you show the server that you are prepared to eat when they serve food.
I have a question, Lorraine.
Mhm.
How do you know when to begin to eat? Is there
Good
a signal?
question. Yes, there is, and we'll talk about it in just a few minutes. That's a very good question. This is another place setting, informal place setting. Now, good question. Some key things to remember. And we sometimes forget this when we're nervous. Please and thank you are a must. It shows good etiquette. It shows that you have manners. It shows that you have concern for others. Please and thank you. And we sometimes miss that when we're nervous. So remember that's two key words that phrases that you want to remember when you're dining, especially when you're networking as well. Now, oftentimes we're hungry when we're seated, but you must wait until everyone at the table is served and seated before you begin eating. Even if the server puts food down in front of you, or there's a salad already in front of you, or soup in front of you, wait until everyone is seated. And then gentlemen still seat ladies. That's when you'll stand if someone approaches you. If it's a woman sitting next to you, to the right or to the left of you, men can still rise, step behind that woman's chair. She sits a little, and then you slowly scoot the chair underneath her on both sides. You're not responsible for seating the women around the table if there's other women there. And then most women feel, I've heard people say, I know how to seat myself. I don't need a man to push my chair under. For women, that's good etiquette to allow that to happen. You don't have to have him seat you completely, but just if he stands behind you, acknowledge the fact that you thank you for pushing my chair under, and then you have a seat, and then that gentleman can have a seat too. You put your napkin on your lap once everyone is seated. I recommend as soon as you're seated, you put it on, but you can wait if you choose to, especially if you're networking and talking and getting out of your seat. And you'll put the folded side facing you. Um, if you leave the table, you can put the napkin on your chair if you're not finished eating, or on the left-hand side of the plate if you're done eating. That signals the waiter that you've done eating your food. If you want to step out of if you need to take a phone call, or you need to use the restroom, you say, "Excuse me," and you go to the restroom, but you never have your cell phone on the table face side up where you can see calls and text messages coming in. Your cell phone, if you need it, is turned over and put on the table, but I recommend putting it away. It's a distraction that is not needed, especially if you're networking, and you want to make a good impression on your table mates. Then put your cell phone away. Now, if you are expecting a life altering text, call, someone's in the hospital. Let your table mates know that are sitting to the right or left of you. And then when you get up and leave, you don't have to tell the whole table, but they'll know that you're taking care of business. Maybe it's a business call and you have to take a call, but just let your table mates know that you'll be right back. And you can step out of the room and make your call, text, or send an email. But you don't have to make a wide announcement about it because it's not necessary. Again, this is really important, so I put it more than once. Turn off your cell phone unless you're expecting a life-altering call. The purpose of the meal is to conduct business. You might be on a date or etc., but never assume that the purpose of the meal is just to get a free meal. If you're dining with other people, the purpose of the meal is whatever that event is. So it's not to get a free lobster meal or to get steak tartare or something else very expensive. You focus on that person or persons at your table, and you focus on the meal, focus on your conversation versus what you're getting out of the meal, which is food. I recommend never
Lorraine?
order. Uh-huh,
Oh, I'm so sorry for interrupting.
uh-huh.
There was a question in the chat, and I want to partially answer, but I do want your feedback as well. So when going to the conference, Ethan is asking whether all of our dinners are like this, and I want to respond to say there's probably only one formal dining event, which will be
Mm.
on Friday evening at the Scholars Banquet. So the table will be set during that meal. At other meals, I believe it's buffet style. So you'll go up and get your plate and then come back. So there's at least one meal that'll be a formal dining setting. But the other part that I want you to chime in on, Lorraine, is um, will they be allowed to use their phones if they get bored? So, how do you navigate the use of phones if you're bored during the event? And then I'll
During the
chime in as
event,
well.
but not at the dinner table? Is that what you're asking during the event, like in
Yes,
between
yes, exactly.
sessions? And
During the event, if it gets boring, then is it customary to use your phone to kind of keep you um, I don't know, entertained during that time?
I don't recommend it. The reason is because you never know who you're in proximity to. You never know who's watching you. If you're always engaged with your phone, that means you're not present mentally. You can be present physically, but you're not present mentally. So I don't recommend getting on your phone. If there's someone from your group to talk to them. This is you building your social skills. If there's someone that was in a previous session with you, you don't know them, but you might walk up to them and ask the question, tell me about where you're from. Tell me about your experience so far. Is this your first conference? Engage them in conversation. You never know who you're meeting. Could be meeting a future boss, someone that's going to help you with research. You never know who you're engaging. So keep your head up and look around. And if you need to return a text message, you can do that quickly, but I don't recommend being on your phone continuously or talking on the phone, especially in an animated way where someone is overhearing your conversation. That is rude and disrespectful and poor etiquette. And we'll talk about that more in a few minutes. So you place your napkin on your chair when you need to leave the table, whether you're interviewing, whether you're in a networking event. That way the waiter knows you're coming back. Now, sometimes they do still take your plate. So try not to get upset if you're still eating and you walk away and they take your plate, but that's a signal to them if you put your napkin on your chair that you'll be back. So you asked a good question. I recommend starting to eat once the server or the whoever is hosting you has signaled that you can begin eating. So if at the formal dining setting, when your plate is served to you, you might be waiting for everyone at the table to get their plate, or you might be waiting for the host, whoever's introducing themselves at that dinner. So be mindful, look around, see what everybody else is doing. And then once you get the signal to go ahead and eat, then you start eating. But if you start eating before everyone else does, that means you're done with your plate and everybody else still eating their meal, and you're sitting there waiting for the waiter to bring you the next meal. So watch for the signals of what's going on around you. That's being mindful. Now, when you're eating, you want to uh, be mindful of where the salt and pepper, maybe the bread bowl is, the salad dressing. You never reach around across the table for food. That's impolite. What you can do is ask somebody, please pass me the ranch that's on the other side of the table. Um, please pass me the salt and pepper that might be on the other side of the room. The key thing is, though, if something is within your reach, you can reach for the salt and pepper, and you might ask the person on your left if they need it, and you hand the salt and pepper shaker together. You never pass one or the other. You pick up both the salt and pepper shaker, you use them, and then you offer it to the person on your left, and then you pass it to the right. That's good etiquette. Um, Water, colas, iced tea are safe drinks to order. But I don't, like I mentioned earlier, I don't recommend alcohol. And the reason I'm stressing this, I've had numerous of examples of people who ordered alcohol and the interview, the networking event, the social event went wrong because the alcohol loosened their tongue and they said and did things that were inappropriate. Now, if you have a food allergy to anything that's being served, you don't have to announce it to the whole room. You don't have to even announce it to the table. You can ask the waiter to come over and say, is this prepared with so and so? If so, I can't eat that. What can I have that doesn't include this ingredient that I already know that I'm allergic to? And you can have a private conversation, and nobody really needs to know that, about your allergies. But you do want to be mindful of your allergies when you're eating in a larger event. Now, I put the hello, I hear someone talking.
I was
Um,
going to say, rest assured that with this conference, we have submitted information about food allergies and dietary restrictions.
oh, okay.
However, they'll be mindful of that during the formal dining event, but at the other meals, They should have place cards next to each of the items that are being served, and it'll tell you whether an item, what is the item, and if it has gluten or if it has is vegetarian. It'll say on the card typically. So if you have a dietary restriction, be mindful of the cards that are at the buffet line because it'll tell you either what's in it or what the item actually is.
Good.
That's
Good to
perfect.
know.
I just wanted to jump in here. So in that regards, I do have some food restrictions. It's sort of kosher or non-kosher foods, which Dr. Brown sort of, I'm going to treat it like an allergy. Like he suggested, if I can have a waiter on the side, just sort of navigate my way there. I have just sort of suggest to him or her that I have food restrictions, no beef or chicken. What's available that I can that I can eat. I guess
Mhm.
that would be perfect.
Yes.
In your
And
case,
Dave's,
Mohammed, we have definitely sent forward to the committee what your restrictions are. And so typically, if you have the opportunity beforehand, you can let them know if it's being prepared. But if not, then absolutely don't feel compelled to eat something that's against what you typically would eat. So, absolutely, yes, you let the waiter know.
Thank you.
yeah, you'll see that I wrote in this fourth area that to eat around something that you know you can't, that you're allergic to. But I put that only because there are some things that people are allergic to. Some people have food preferences like you, Muhammad, and then other people just don't like things. You might not like mashed potatoes. So if you just don't like something, then you eat around it. But if you have a food allergy, you might get sick if you have maybe shrimp pasta and next to your spinach. You can eat the spinach, but you don't want to eat the shrimp pasta. So I did put eat around it, but that's for people who have preferences, not necessarily food restrictions or cultural or religious reasons for not eating something. So you can speak up for yourself and stay safe at the same time. And remember the purpose of the meal. In this case, you're going to be networking. And in networking, you're not really focusing on just your plate or just your cell phone. It's the people in the room, the people at your table that you'll be connecting with. And that way you walk away with a good experience. Not a cheat sheet, a cheat code rather. Um, I want you to take your fingers and do like this. This is a B and this is a D. So in your mind, or I still do this because I still have to remind myself when I sit down in a place setting, especially when it's a complicated or a formal place setting, I remember that the bread is on my left and my drinks are on my right. So if you ever sat down at a table and you wondered, is that your glass or is that my glass? You always know that your drink glass is up to the right, that's yours, and your bread dish, if you're served bread, is up to your left. So B and D. This is your mnemonic. This is your reminder, and I still do it too. So if you see other people doing it, you know what they're doing. They're giving themselves a reminder. B for bread on the left, and D for drinks on the right. Now, the first serving often is salad if you're getting a multi course meal. With salad, be mindful that there may be things in that salad that you can't eat. If that's the case, then you ask the waiter politely to bring you just lettuce or to bring you something else in its place, maybe more bread if you choose not to eat something. If you are eating a salad, you're going to start with that outside silverware. So the silverware, as we saw in the picture, the salad fork is on the left. And so you're going to start with the outermost silverware when you eat. And that's what you'll begin with. And the if you're getting soup, that outside spoon on the right hand side is your soup spoon. That stays in the soup bowl when they take it away, and your salad fork stays on the salad plate when they take that plate away from you. So just be mindful that you start from the outside and you work in when you're eating. And the server already knows that. They know that you're working from the outside in. And sometimes they'll say, keep your fork. That's because you'll need it for the next serving and you won't get another fork. Some places have multiple forks, some do not. So listen to the waiter because they're going to clue you in as to how to handle a situation. Now, when you take that fork, you might also take a knife and cut your lettuce up, especially if the leaves or whatever you're eating is very large in that plate. So it's okay to cut it up, but try not to scrape the bottom of the salad bowl or the salad plate. And then also, as you're eating, that salad fork usually has tines that are pointed, which means it can pick up thin pieces of lettuce or arugula or other things that you'll be eating. But never scrape the bottom of your bowl trying to get all of it out. You can use your knife to push the food onto your fork so that you don't have to scrape the bottom of your bowl.
I have a question, Lorraine.
Uh-huh.
With salad, are you supposed to kind of dig like down or come from the side? Is there a certain way you should hold your fork when you eat salad?
Good question. Good question. You can you're going to force that salad, whatever's on your plate, onto your fork, but you don't push down on it because that's going to cause a scraping noise. So you approach your salad from the left, well, I'm a lefty, from the right, most of your righties, but you approach your salad from the side and you poke the salad with a side angle versus an up and down angle, because that's when you get the scraping and the loud noise. And then you're brushing against the plate, trying to get all of everything out. You can avoid that. That's annoying and it's impolite. Now, I'll get a spoon to show you the soup demonstration. For soup, and it's hot. Soup is supposed to be served hot unless you're getting a vichyssoise or a soup that's supposed to be served cold, but most of the time it's hot. What I recommend that you do when you in this, I was going to bring a soup bowl. When you serve your soup, you never approach your soup by just digging into it. That's impolite. What you do, you're going to take your soup spoon and you're going to approach the soup sort of a backwards way, and you'll scoop it up backwards, and you can lean your spoon up against the back of your bowl, and then put it into your mouth. You don't blow your soup and then eat it. So that means you can talk for a few minutes if it's really hot. Then you eat your soup and you continue with that motion of a backward swooping motion, putting the soup into your mouth, not you put it into your mouth and then you do the same. You keep repeating that. Now, what if that soup is really good and you want to get that bottom corner of it? It's okay to lift that bowl, lean it to the side, and then get the last of the soup out and put it in your mouth and then put the spoon back into the container because the waiter or waitress is going to take both of these with them. Um, if you don't like the soup and you taste it and you say, "Ooh, I don't care for this," you can ask for another soup or you can just leave the soup be. So you may not want soup. Some people don't want salad, soup, and everything else that goes along with a formal dinner. So you can just leave it be. The waiter will not be offended. Sometimes if you don't know what's in it, like this blended, like a squash soup, you might not know exactly everything that's in that soup. And so you might not eat it because you don't want it. You don't have to make an announcement of it. Oh my God, I never had such terrible squash soup. This is ridiculous. You never criticize the food. Never, because it's impolite and it's disrespectful. So you want to say something positive about it if you can. If you can't, you don't say anything. Now we're ready to eat, and we're ready to eat good.
I got a quick question before we get into the meal.
Uh-huh.
So with bread, is it customary if you're going to butter your bread, should you open the whole thing up and butter it? Should you butter piece by piece? What do you recommend?
Good question. Yes. If you they have bread, you'll put it on your bread plate. Now, some places you'll notice they don't have a bread plate. When you go to Long John Silver's, there's no bread for that big, huge hunk of bread they give you. So it goes on your plate. But if you have a bread bowl, you can get a pat of butter. Some places will give you a pat of butter, it's preformed little piece of butter. Sometimes you have to take it out of a butter dish, but you put the butter on your bread plate, and then you lift your bread. You break off a piece and you can butter that piece. You never butter the whole things. Now, when we're at home, if that's what you want to do, fine. But when you're out in public, good etiquette and good manners dictate that you break a piece of bread off, you butter that with a little bit of butter, not lots of butter, and then you eat that. And if you want to continue doing that, that's how you eat a piece of bread. And that's good etiquette to show that I'm not certain if I'll eat all of my bread and butter, but I'm going to eat as much as I can, as much as I want in this moment. So it might be two or three pieces as you're eating your meal. It might be two or three pieces of bread before your meal comes, especially if you're hungry. But that's a good question. Most people don't know that. So thanks for asking that.
You're welcome.
Now, during a meal, this is important to remember that you want to think ahead. Now, what we have an advantage of when we go places, we can look up and see what the menu is on a at a restaurant before we go out on a date or before we go on been invited to a networking event or an interviewing event. It's a good question that that person asked what was going to be served, and you've already done the homework to help make sure that the people that you're taking to the conference, their their dining needs are going to be taken care of. But if you don't know what's being served, when you look at the menu, you're going to avoid things that are going to cause a mess that might get all over your clothes, like spaghetti, even though spaghetti is so good. Um, Chicken with bones in it can be complicated, and you can pick up your food with your hands and eat it. But if there's an option to use your fork and knife, go ahead and use your fork and knife. But you can pick up food with your hands, especially if something like barbecue or something like that with a bone. Big sandwiches you want to avoid, ribs, anything that could cause a mess. And remember, the purpose of that meal is not necessarily to get a big, delicious, super stack of roast beef. The purpose of the meal is still networking. And so you want to avoid anything that's going to distract from you being able to have a conversation in between your bites. Do not get bread or other food items on the table unless the hostess offers it. Break off a piece of bread and eat it slowly, which you just asked, and butter it if you choose to. Or if you're somewhere and you're having a biscuit, maybe you're eating breakfast, you do the same thing with a biscuit or an English muffin. You only butter and put jelly on the part that you're going to eat at that moment. Um, Order food that's easy to cut into bite-sized pieces so that you can talk in between eating. And then never order something new. If you never had steak tartare and you don't know if you're going to like it or not, and it just sounds fancy, don't eat it. Look for something that's familiar that you know you can cut in small pieces, be able to have a conversation with your table mates, and then still enjoy the meal because you want to enjoy what you eat. So those are a few things I want you to be mindful of. Now, there's a few things to remember about your knife and fork on your plate. Um, when you're finished with your meal, excuse me, if you're taking a break while you're eating, say if you want to went to the restroom or you see somebody across the hall that you want to go talk to, leave your fork in this position and your knife at the top of your plate. That signals the waiter that you're not done eating. If you put your knife and fork in any other position, they're going to assume that you're done. So this is where you put your knife and your fork it's called the 4 o'clock position. And this is the American style. So if you're eating in a continental style, which is a different way of handling your knife and fork, I usually speak about the American style because that's what most of us, how we eat. Your tines are up on your fork and your knife, the blade is facing toward the inside of your plate at the top of your plate. And that's your signal that you're taking a break while you eat. Um, and does anybody know why in this picture, let me go back. Does anyone know why this knife is facing the plate? No.
I have
It
no
is
clue.
it is told that during the medieval times, knives were placed on the table, and if the knife was facing the plate, that means it's a peaceful dinner. If the knife was turned outward away from the plate, there could be trouble. So we still serve, make our plate settings with the knife facing in toward our plate. But I thought that was really interesting when I read that. That could be two signals. Now, if you ever go to a wedding and the knives are turned out, that means somebody's planning trouble at that wedding. You might want to have your head on a swivel. But I just thought that was really cute and interesting.
Yeah, that's funny. I have a question, Lorraine.
Uh-huh.
I know if we can to avoid things that are messy and difficult to navigate, but let's say, for example, they're serving spaghetti or some kind of Alfredo or linguine dish. How do
Mhm.
you manage the noodles? Do you twirl them around your fork? I
Good
mean, do
question.
you, I mean, sometimes there's a spoon that comes with it. Do you use that?
Hmm.
What do you typically do?
And it depends, you're right, and it depends on your place settings. Now, if you're only getting a fork and a knife to eat spaghetti or linguine or shrimp pasta, then you're going to navigate with those two items. But if you also have a spoon on your place setting, then, and did bring a spoon with me, you can take that spaghetti, you'll put your tines down into your plate. You can twirl your knife around the spaghetti so that it goes around your spaghetti goes around your fork, and then you can use your knife to cut it off. Oops, knife's the blade side down. You can use your knife to cut it off, and then you can lift that spaghetti or pasta linguine up to your mouth with a if you have a spoon, that's another way of helping to control the splash of the sauce. So you do the same thing. You put your tines down into your pasta dish, and your spoon will go on the outside of your fork, and you will do the same turn. The spoon serves as kind of a control mechanism, like I'm doing with the knife. And then you use your spoon to cut off the spaghetti, and then you'll raise it to your mouth and eat it, because that can be a very messy meal if you're trying just to lift the spaghetti and put it in your mouth. So that's a way of controlling the splash. Your shirt doesn't end up with sauce all over it, your jacket or shirt or a blouse, and you can eat it and still enjoy it. Now, what I've also seen people do is they'll cut their spaghetti up, just like when your parents did when you were a kid. That's not good etiquette for adults. Just like eating a whole piece of bread, when you slather it with butter, and maybe if you're eating a biscuit, you slather it with jelly. That's not considered good etiquette. And so, the same thing, you want to consider, how do I approach this meal? Still be able to have a conversation with the people at my table, but enjoy it as well. And that's one of the things. So, it's a strategy to eating some things. Same thing if you're eating bone in chicken or a veal that has a gristle in the inside, you'll cut around that and just leave it on your plate. Now, one of the questions that often gets asked is, while I'm eating, what happens if I touch something or taste something that I don't like? Had that experience. I was eating oysters, fried oysters, and one of the oysters was not completely done. So there is a way to take things out of your mouth instead of screaming, "Oh my God, this oyster isn't done." You don't say anything. You just quickly put the fork back to your mouth, put the food on your fork, and you do it in a quick way, not so that it catches everybody's attention. And then you place that back onto your plate. You never spit it into your napkin. You never call the waiter or waitress to say, "Oh my God, this shrimp isn't done," or this. You can do things without causing a lot of commotion. And that is to just politely take it out of your mouth and put it back on your table, and excuse me, not on the table, on your plate, and you continue eating. So, good question. That leads to some complicated situations that often happen. When you're done, you place your knife and your fork in the fork lock position so that the waiter, and they good waiters, especially in nicer restaurants, they know what this means. They know you're done with your meal. They may still ask to be polite, but they know the signals that you're done. And then you also can lift up your napkin and put it to the left side of your plate, or you can put the napkin on your plate if there's no food left on your plate. But I don't recommend that, because then they have to handle a wet, messy um, cloth napkin. If it's paper, that's different. Then they can just lift everything up at one time. But if it's a paper napkin, you can put it to the left of the plate, the plate, and then they'll signals the waiter also that you're done. Especially if you're ready to talk business at your table, you'll do those two things, and they'll signal the waiter to the waiter or waitress that you're done. Any questions about that?
I got a question. So let's say, for example, you have salad and the salad dressing is across the table and you ask someone to pass it. Are you passing it with the handle first or on the side? How do you pass it?
Good question. It depends on, and I can demonstrate with my saucer. So it depends on what size. So some salad dressing ladles will have a handle and some do not, or they'll have double. So sometimes you'll see people lift it up and they'll put two hands on it, one on the bottom to steady it, and then they handle the handle. So you pass it with the handle to the next person, and they take it from the bottom and they'll turn it and hold it. So it's a dance that you do, but the purpose is not to spill it. and you give it to that person, and they can hold the bottom, turn it into their hand. Now, I'm a lefty, so I'm passing things with my left hand, but it would be the same thing if I was passing it to a righty. I'd steady it with my bottom hand and then pass it to them, and then they're going to turn it. I'm going out of view. They'll turn it, and they'll be able to handle the dressing ladle, the dressing bowl. Same thing with dressing, salad dressing,
Even like water
oils.
pitchers or something that are there that
Mhm.
have handles. Yeah.
The same thing. You'll, with your dominant hand, you'll pick it up, but you'll steady it with your right, and then you pass that water. Now, if you want to just put water into someone else's glass, you can do that and then set it down. But if you're passing it to someone on the other side of the table, remember we pass to the right. So if the person is across the table, passing it to the left, if the person on the left says, "Oh, I want water too," you can do that. But generally, you'll pass to the right to get to the other side of the table or to the person that wants that item. Good question. Let's see if there's anything else you need to know about that. Um, there might be multiple um, liquid containers. So there could be Pepsi, Sprite container, and water. And you do the same thing with all of them. If someone wants Sprite, you'll pick that up, pass it to the right. Oftentimes they're served in fluted type containers where they don't have handles. But if it has a handle, you pick it up with your dominant hand and then you pass it to the person until it reaches the person that's requesting it. If anything else that comes up, definitely pipe in and ask the question. Now, you made it through a meal. You watch your P's and Q's, you ask the right questions, you not put your elbows on the table when you ate. You made it. So now you place your knife and fork in the 4 o'clock position. You put your napkin to the side of your plate, or you can put it on your plate if there's no food left. That signals the waiter that you're done, and then you thank the host. You thank maybe committee members that put on the lunch or dinner. You thank you is really important because people don't say thank you. So when they hear thank you, that makes you stand out. So you can thank the people that might have put on that formal dinner. It might be a certain faction of people. So go up to them later and thank them for the dinner and for maybe someone spoke during the dinner. And then speak to that keynote person. We're going to talk about networking in a few minutes. But these are really important factors. Now, during dining, I often, when I was at Eastern and I did career counseling, etiquette workshops, and then outside of EMU, the questions would always come up. What do I talk about? I'm being really mindful of my etiquette, but what do I talk about? So these are some things that I recommend that you don't talk about. Sex, drugs, politics, etc. They get people into conversations that's hard to get out of. They can become troublesome, and it's best to avoid them. Local um, interesting news, information from your field. People wanted to know your trajectory in your education. Those are better conversations to have. Something about yourself, and also asking people about themselves is better conversation at the dinner table. So conference dues. What do you do once you get to that conference? You're in the airport, you're really nervous. You go to your room, you check in, then you go down to maybe to the reception. It's good to dress for that. Dress is really important. And there's a couple things I want you to remember. You don't have to dress up. You don't need a suit and tie on. If you want to wear one, that's good too. But business casual wear for men, and we'll talk about women in a few minutes, transgender, non-specific, non-binary. It's good to think about what you're going to wear because what you wear projects who you are and who you want to be. So put some thought into it. I usually recommend just a button-down shirt. You can wear a shirt like this guy has got on the right-hand side, but having maybe a jacket over it. Um, Maybe to the introductory meeting, but not to that formal dinner. To the formal dinner, you're going to dress up a little bit more. So a button-down shirt, white, blue, brown, something neutral, not something with prints and loud. A blazer or a jacket is appropriate. Something that just looks, you don't have to wear something like you wear to your Sunday, Easter Sunday attire, but something that looks appropriate for the event. And then to cut down on packing, you can pack a suit and then pack extra jackets and pants that can be interchanged if you choose to do that, or a vest or something. That's going to save your packing space if you strategically plan what you're going to wear each day. Pants. Pants are fine. I don't recommend wearing shorts. I know some people wear shorts year round. I have on shorts right now, self-disclosure, but I like wearing shorts in the house. But when you're outside and you're going to a business event or a networking event like your conference, I recommend that you wear pants. Now, you don't have to wear dress pants to every event, but you do want to make sure your pants don't have rips in them or holes in them. They may look cool to you. They may be $200 jeans, but they are not professional. And so, dress pants or pants that are intact, and I say intact because there's no holes or anything like that, bleach stains, they're not wrinkled. You don't have to, now with the way fabrics are made, you don't have to iron everything. But if it looks crunchy, you do need to iron. Get the iron out in the hotel room and iron briefly. You don't have to make sure it has a seam or anything, but you do want to get most of the wrinkles out. And then gym shoes. I know that most people wear gym shoes. They're just fashionable now. You get a pair of Jordans that match your outfit, other types of shoes, but be mindful that in some settings, gym shoes, casual shoes are not appropriate. So just be mindful of that when you're packing. And then you want to read the room. If you walk into the host meeting at the beginning of the conference, I forget what that's called. When you go for the introductory meeting and you see everybody's got on shirt and ties, that's going to probably be the attire for the rest of the conference. Now, I don't want you to feel self-conscious about it, but just be aware that if you wear something like a casual shirt with a paw print on it, you might stand out as someone that might not be serious about your future education and your trajectory of your education. Someone might not ask you to be on their research committee if they think that you're not taking things seriously. So just be mindful of what you're wearing. Even if you wear gym shoes, make sure they're clean. Make sure your shoestrings are clean, so that they'll pull the whole outfit together, and you won't have to worry about what you're wearing. You won't be self-conscious rather about what you're wearing. Now, for people who identify as femme, I do know that this is not a general outfit for women. And the first one was not a general outfit for men. It's just suggestions. But women can wear a shirt, a blouse, a jacket or a cardigan, slacks, same thing, no rips in the jeans, bleach stains, pants that are too tight. Even if they're jeggings, you want to avoid those if they can show your figure. We don't want to, for men and women, we don't want a situation where you can see your groin. I'm being direct. So that means something that if you're going to wear leggings, that you wear a shirt that's long enough for men and women that cover your genitalia so that that's not visible. And same thing with shoes, flip-flops, Crocs, Cracks in some situations are appropriate, but for this type of networking event, you'll probably want to wear something understated. So if you do have on Crocs or you do have on sandals, depending on how warm it's going to be in the state you're in, you just want to make sure that it blends with your outfit and that it's not going to make you stand out. So just flats or something that's casual is appropriate. Now, I've seen at conferences people come in 3-inch heels. They're not comfortable. They can't walk around in them by noon, 1 o'clock. They're walking around with no shoes on. So that makes you seem like you're not making good common sense about what to wear. So wear things that you know you can keep on all day and that you feel comfortable in. And these are just a few suggestions for what you might wear. I recommend, and I think this is something that Ms. Brown would also say, is prepare an elevator pitch. Does anybody know what an elevator pitch is? An introduction? Okay, good. We'll talk about it. So an elevator pitch serves a lot of purposes, and I'll go over them. But it's a 10 to 30-second summary of who you are, what you do, and what you're looking for. And it might also include any graduate work that you've already done and how you see yourself within higher education, PhD, PDD, MD, whatever it is. So it's a brief introduction of who you are. You can give someone a business card with that same information on it, but being able to stick your hand out and appropriately shake their hand and introduce yourself is very important. Most people don't look people in the eye when they shake hands. You want to make sure if someone's reaching their hand out to you, you put your whole hand out. Normally, I do this in person. I go one by one and we'll practice handshakes, but you put your whole hand out. It's not like this where you're shying away from a person. You stiffen up your hand in a casual way where you can still move your fingers, and you'll grip that other person's hand, and then you give 3 pumps. 1, 2, 3, and you let go. Now, what is this called if I was being introduced to someone and I said, "Oh, Lorraine, I've been waiting to meet you. Oh my goodness, I just can't wait. I couldn't wait to see you." And you're rubbing their arm and their hand. What's that called?
It sounds like flirtatious behavior to me.
Yes, yes. Got to be careful of that, especially ladies, because sometimes we have a tendency to smile at situations and gush. Men gush too, but women will do that. And we're seen as unprofessional. So when you shake someone's hand, you do, women and men shake the same way. You reach out your hand, you pump 3 times, and then you let go. Holding someone's hand too long can be seen as bullying or offensive. So you let that person's hand. Now, if the other person is holding your hand, you can let your hand go limp a little bit so they know, oh, let me let your hand go. Because they might be fangirling you or fanguying you. But you can let your hand go limp a little and then they'll know to let go. But that summary is going to just include who you are. And I recommend practicing it. Hi, I'm Lorraine McKnight. I'm a mental health counselor in private practice, and I do etiquette workshops um, and other things. So depending on the environment I'm in, I'll include other things into that brief introduction. Um, what that does is when you're participating in Q&A, say a session is over and they say any questions, it's okay to stick your hand up and say, how did you come up with that conclusion? Or how many people did you survey? Or how did you know you want to study that? That's so fascinating. Q&A also is a great way to for people to recognize you in a good way. And then you can walk up and give your 30-second spiel about who you are and introduce yourself. But don't be that person in the room that raises their hand and asks a question that the person has already gave the answers to, or something that's totally off target. Make sure that during the Q&A that you introduce yourself to the person after the presentation, and then you mention what you learned. That's how you endear yourself to people, and they may be the people that call you from UT Texas and say, would you like to be part of this research with me? We've got $50,000 to do research on this particular topic. I know that that's your PhD trajectory. So you can, as an undergrad, grad, or PhD candidate, you can participate with us on this research. So be mindful that you can participate in Q&A and then introduce yourself. Avoid interrupting people. Even if you have a glaring comment or question, please wait. And then you can stick your hand up once. Usually that person doing the presentation will see you. And when they get to a point where they can pause, then they'll call on you. If they don't, and maybe if they forget, then you can you put your hand up at the end of the session and do the same thing so that you can get acknowledged. And what I recommend, this was often asked, what do I say when I'm fangirling? There's somebody that I met at a conference and I'd read his book. And I was just fascinated with him. And I asked him, what does he intend to do next? He wrote a really good book on counseling, mental health counseling. And that he said, no one has ever asked me that before. So some of the things you can ask people when you have questions is, can you tell me more about that subject? Or what made you enter into this field? Or what's next for your research? That endears a conversation versus just someone saying, it's pleased to meet you, and you turn around and walk away. You want to find common ground and strengthen your connection with that particular person or persons. When you end a conversation, you never just walk away when you're done. I'm done talking to you, bye. But you can end the conversation by asking to stay in touch. And you can do that through LinkedIn. You can send them an email. So that means they're either giving you their electronic card, you're touching phones to get their electronic card, or you're looking at the The program, sometimes programs will have email addresses for the presenters. If it does not, you can ask for that person's email address, write it on your program, or include it in your phone. That's when you do want to be on your phone, is when you're putting key information into your phone. And then I recommend if you get someone's contact, follow up within 24 hours, even if you're still at the conference. Send them a quick note on LinkedIn to connect. You can send them a message if you don't necessarily want to connect, but you do want to stay in touch with them, or send them an email. But make sure you follow up with that person to thank them for giving you their name and phone number and their personal information, and then make sure you follow up. It's a great way to make connections. I've made great connections because of that. Any questions
Can I add
before we?
something, Lorraine?
Sure.
Yeah. So as a part of the elevator pitch at the conference, feel free to, of course, give your name. You can say, I'm a senior at Eastern Michigan University, and this is what I'm researching, because you'll be among scholars who are also presenting research. So that's customary that you'll be able to discuss your research and that being common conversation. If you're looking for a commonality, that can definitely be a place that you can actually go to.
That's a
Can we
good idea.
backtrack for a second, Lorraine? I have a
Sure.
question.
Let me go
So,
backwards.
yeah, it's just a question. You mentioned kind of like a couple of areas that are taboo for conversation
Mhm,
during a meal. Um,
mhm.
what happens if another person brings one of those topics up? How do you get out of that conversation?
You ever seen someone play football and someone's coming toward them and they sideswipe them and they keep
Uh-huh.
moving forward? You want to
Uh-huh.
do the same thing in a conversation. So if someone brings up, maybe there's a sex tape that's released or something, and I don't know how they work it into a conversation, you can say, "That's interesting." And then you can switch to a different conversation, different topic. Maybe you talk about the meal. This is the best linguine I have ever had. Have you had anything this good before? That changes the subject. So pretend you're sideswiping them to continue moving forward. Especially if you're sitting next to someone that brings something like up. I was at a conference and someone asked me an inappropriate question, and I had to do the same thing. I imagined myself sideswiping the topic and moving on. And so I just put it back to the meal. This raspberry salad dressing is the best. We were in Traverse City. And so thank goodness I was having the strawberry vinaigrette, which is they're known for this particular restaurant. And I was able to swipe that question and make it about the meal. And you want to do that versus because it's easy to get into conversations where they're going back and forth, and next thing you know, there's an argument. And so to avoid that, I recommend just doing a side swipe.
Awesome. Thanks.
You are welcome. Ethan or Mohammed, do you have a question before we move forward?
Yeah. So in regards to casual dress, that was a pair of jeans. So I'm sort of this is towards Dr. Brown. So basically, for the airport, this is something like what you're expecting us to dress as, and for business professional, it would be full attire of suit and tie and so on. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that when flying, you can go a bit more casual if you'd like. And so if there are jeans, I know here for business casual, it does list jeans without any fraying or holes. So I think that is, of course, the same when you travel. Casual is a bit more relaxed, but of course, we are representing the university. So if you keep casual, I'm thinking casual as far as comfortable, but also still. Dressed in a stance where you're representing yourself in EMU and McNair in an appropriate way. So no holes in shirts and that
Yeah.
kind of thing, even
Fair enough.
though it's only casual.
Yep.
Yep.
And if you have an EMU shirt, that's always appropriate.
I just want to hypothetically, there's a presentation and I want to ask a question. So, should I introduce myself first? My name is Mohammed Al-Masawi. I'm part of the McNair program. I'm a senior student at EMU, and then proceed with the question, or should I just sort of? Would that be too much, or should I just ask the question?
Oh, that's a good question. What do you think, Ms. Brown?
It depends on who you're speaking with. So if you're asking a question to one of the presenters, and absolutely, right, you want to introduce yourself, where you're from, so they get an idea of who you are. if you're in a less formal setting and you're speaking with a student that you're meeting from another university, you could start off with your name and where you attend school, and it may go a bit more informal from there. But I think again, it just depends on who you're speaking with, on how much introductory information you give.
Hypothetically speaking, just on that, if people are listening, just go, as professional as well as much as professional as you want to sound, just so because others are listening as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Good question. Good question. So nerve-wracking to know what to
It,
put in the suitcase.
yeah, yeah.
Where's this conference at?
This is in Maryland, University of Maryland, College Park.
Okay, I talked to someone from Virginia earlier today, my tech support person, and he said it's pretty warm in Virginia, so that's not too far. Um, so maybe short-sleeved, casual tops for men and women, and then maybe if you're wearing long sleeves, something that you do feel comfortable, you definitely want to still wear an undershirt underneath because you
Mhm.
never know if it's going to be cold in the room. That's the other thing. It might be warm outside, but the conference halls are often freezing,
Yeah,
and they
they
do
are.
that on purpose to cut down on germs being passed. It's just more comfortable to have a cold room versus a hot room. And so you want to have maybe layers on that you can, maybe a jacket and a casual shirt or collared shirt that's open instead of a tie on with it. But it's hard to know what to pack. But think ahead. I'm glad that we're doing this so you can spend some time thinking about what do I pack to make a good impression on the people that will be in the room with me and at the conference with me.
Yeah. And I think, Muhammad, I always try to err on the side of being more professional just to present yourself well, because you don't really know who you're speaking with.
Mhm.
Someone may be dressed down and having, it may be an informal conversation. And then you realize this is the dean of the grad school, at Maryland, right? And so you always want to err on the side of presenting yourself in that light because you never know what opportunities a person may have or who a person may know that they can refer you to. And I think that it's always good to be mindful, especially we're headed to a conference. We know that there are going to be some people there that may be able to provide opportunities and have opportunities to network with those that may be beneficial to you. So, with that being said, it's always good to think about I'm here to promote myself, I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow. And because of that, that when you meet people, even if it's in an informal setting, this may be someone that has an opportunity that can impact your life long term.
Like you said, Muhammad, you never know who's listening, who's standing off to the side. So
Yeah.
those are good questions. Um, and you have more time, so I want to be mindful of the time, so I'm going to keep moving. Um, so next, we're going to talk about um, just a summary of everything we've talked about. So your appearance, conservative, neat, clean, and grooming. Now, a lot of cologne is not needed. Some cologne, especially if you're using aftershave, is if you're shaving, you want to make sure that the smell of the aftershave or the cologne is not intrusive because that can cause people harm, especially excuse me, people who have sensitivity with their smell. Communication skills. You want to be able to express yourself well. The way you introduced yourself, Muhammad, was excellent. You did a really good job of that. Um, and you never underestimate your competition and you never underestimate the people that are standing around you. So being able to express yourself well is very good. Sure, there's nothing else I wanted to say about that. Can't think of anything else. Um, your personality. People are watching your personality as well, how poised you are, how approachable you are. um, those networking situations when you're talking to maybe a colleague that you already know, you still want to have your body language facing a little outward, not just closed into them, so that other people can approach you and talk to you, especially if they want to know more about you. So approachability is going to be really important. And then a smile and eye contact is very important. Just even people across the room, looking at them, giving them eye contact, letting them know that you see them is a great way of maybe you walking up to someone else and asking questions or them walking up to you. Experience. You don't have a lot of experience yet, regarding your higher education and what you're learning, but you can talk about what you've learned thus far, where you intend to be in the future. If you don't exactly know where you want to be, talk about that. I don't know if I want to do law school or if I want to stay in social work. I haven't decided yet, but I do want to advance in either of those areas. And so I'm still making some determinations about my future. That gives other people the opportunity to say, you should be mindful of this. Were you aware of this? And that's why talking about what you do know so far is a really good thing to do. And in your introduction is how you might do that. What's motivating, what made you come to the conference, what's your motivation for success in the future. Sometimes people will want to know that, and that's some things you might want to talk about. Everybody in my family has this degree, but I've never felt led in that direction. I'm leaning in this direction. That's a motivation that some people might want to be aware of. So have that in the back of your mind, why you're motivated to go to the conference, and then your preparation. Um, this is me, and this is something I always recommend. I've never heard anyone else say this, but when I go to a conference or when I go to an event in my profession, I look up the people who are speaking, and you can quickly do that on LinkedIn to see where they worked, what experiences they've had. That's how I've made connections with people over outside of Michigan to do conferences, to do presentations, to sit on podcasts. I made connections with people just by looking up who they were, and then I introduced myself when I went to the event. Um, and then, are you knowledgeable about the contact? Have you looked them up instead of saying, "Tell me who you are"? You spoke yesterday. Look them up if you have a few minutes, and you can do that on your phone. But I don't recommend you doing that while they're speaking or when you're in another session. But if you're on break, look up those people that you're interested in, and then make your way to them to introduce yourself. It's important to be on time. Walking into a session after it started is impolite and disrespectful. And one day, if you're doing a presentation at a conference, you will want people to show up before you start speaking because it's disruptive when someone comes in late. If you're going to a networking dinner, you want to make sure you're there on time when people are being seated. Now, if it's a casual buffet style, that's different. But if it's a seated event, you want to get there when people are being seated, especially if you don't have place settings and you're not told where to sit, but you want to make sure that you're there on time. I do recommend, if you want to, is to get business cards or a digital ID. So a digital ID is what you have on your phone, and someone could either touch your phone to get your information, or you can share your contact information with them. You don't even have to buy anything for that. If they have an iPhone or a similar phone, you can just share your contact with them through your phone and then send it to their message or to their email. You just need their phone number. But that's the way to keep in touch with people and then reach out to them later when you get home. I really enjoyed your presentation on Tuesday, and I really employed the other subject you spoke on Thursday. Both were fascinating, both piqued my interest. And so that's how you build relationships with people outside of the conference. Business cards, writing down their name and number, or sending them an email. So what does all this mean? It means that you're going to be on your P's and Q's when you're at the conference. P's and Q's means polite and my brain just went blank. I forgot what Q means. But you're going to be polite. You're going to be on your game. You're going to be ready to talk to people. You're going to be ready to share. So why does this matter? Because it's going to set you apart from other people who just shake someone's hand and they walk away and they think, oh, I should have got that person's phone number. Or I wish I could talk to them next week about this particular topic. You're already going to have their information. It helps people feel safe and at ease when you have good manners and you are on your P's and Q's. Once I remember what Q means, I'll tell you. It gives you confidence. Muhammad introducing himself a few minutes ago, I heard confidence in the way he introduced himself. You relax when you've already prepared. And everyone wants to show that they have good, that phrase, home training. It means that your mom or whoever raised you taught you how to be polite, how to act in public, how to show respect. That is heads and tails above anything that you can do to impress people, is to have good manners and to demonstrate them. We talked about attire, appropriate attire. So keep in mind what you might wear. And so there's a few other things I want to make you aware of that I've heard comments from employers, from networkers, colleagues that a person they almost lost respect for them depending on what they were wearing. And I know weed is legal in Michigan, but it's not weed legal everywhere. And smoking weed and cigarettes can leave odors in your clothes. It can leave odors on your breath and in your hair. So be mindful of that when you go places and you're introducing yourself to someone, that it's not just your cologne that might be offensive. It might be the cigarette or the marijuana you just smoked. So be mindful of those things. That makes a bad impression on people, and that's not something you travel all the way to another state to do, is make a bad impression. Oftentimes, if your hair is longer, especially for women too, if you're playing with your hair and it's in your face, that's distracting. So men and women, if you have longer hair, pull it back into a pony or into a bun so that it's not distracting to the people around you when you're talking. I recommend if you have a padfolio, which is just a fold over notebook, could be leather, plastic, whatever it is, that you keep your information in that. You can keep business cards in that. Um, you don't need to have random pieces of paper when you're taking notes. And I don't recommend, I do it, but I don't recommend taking notes on your phone because it looks like you're distracted. So that's why it's really important to have a padfolio or a portfolio so that you can put your notes in. You can put business cards in there. You can put your own business cards in and then pass them out to people as you meet them. So think ahead about how you'll look and carry your documents. You might end up with a conference folder, um, maybe some materials per session. A lot of time, the last conference I went to, everything was online. So once the session was over, you could hit a link, not a link, a QR code, and it downloaded their PowerPoint to directly to you. So nothing was printed for that whole conference that I went to last year and the year before, the same conference I went to twice. That was fascinating to me that there was no paper. And then wearing the minimal amount of jewelry, makeup, or other things is going to prevent you from being distracting. So just keep in mind that your presentation of who you are is not just shaking someone's hand, but it can be your whole package that you put together. So just keep those things in mind and you will be successful.
So, Lorraine, the five-piece rule, is that saying like no more than five pieces of jewelry?
Yes, and that's for women and men now, because men wear jewelry. I'm going to stop sharing. Come back to you. All right, and come back to you. Yes, so generally, the rule is for five pieces of jewelry that you wear. If women are wearing earrings, it's just one or maybe two instead of a row of rings or piercings up your ear. Now, that includes nose rings, eye rings, tongue rings, cheek piercings, tongue, lower lip piercings. Keep it to a five. And that means you might have to take some piercings out, some jewelry out of your piercings so that you keep the minimum to a recording, the minimum to a five. Um, and that can be offensive to some people. Some people don't want to take their jewelry out. It's still a choice. It's still a personal choice whether you do or you don't. But just be mindful that that might be distracting if you have multiple piercings. And I've seen people with them in their neck, the uh, a piercing straight through, or sometimes it's just a diamond dot in their neck. And so just be mindful that what you have on can be distracting, and you don't want to distract people in the wrong way so that you remember for the wrong things. And so, yes, keep a minimum. And the same thing with makeup. Casual makeup always suffices. Studio makeup, and women who wear studio makeup knows what studio makeup is not necessarily appropriate at networking events, conferences, unless you're going to Comic-Con or something else, another type of event. Maybe you want to go into marketing and you want to market cosmetics in the future. That might be an appropriate place where you wear studio makeup, all your piercings, your hair in different colors and different designs, but be mindful that you want to blend with the general population, still being unique in some way. You might still wear a full beard, or women might wear different color hair colors, but you want to make sure that you're not offending in how you present yourself. Can you think of anything that might be vital for them as they prepare for the conference and or attend, or even after the conference?
What about things like hairstyles? Are there any customary ways that they should or should not style their hair?
No, I think now that we are moving into an age where more things are accepted. So if you wear your hair in an afro, if you wear your hair in braids or dreads, the key thing is that it's not distracting and you're not pulling your hair out of your face. I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with someone and they're constantly pushing their hair out of their face, or they're playing with their hair. They put it up in a bun and then they take it down. They put it up in a bun. That's distracting. And so wearing your hair in a way that feels comfortable, whether it's in a pony, a high pony, braids, dreads, whatever it is, that it's comfortable to you and it's not going to be distracting when you're having conversations with other people.
Okay, thank you for that. Mohammed, do you have any questions that Lorraine has not gone over about navigating attending the conference? Anything that comes to mind that you want her to address?
No, so far, I feel like I got a lot of good feedback, made a few notes here and there. But typically, no. The only thing would be for digital ID. I don't think that's available for Android. I'm gonna probably look it up online. I don't think I'm gonna have time to do a resume or the business cards. And I'm just trying to be an observer, just trying to take in as much as I can. Try to
Yes,
make mental notes. I'm gonna take your cues on not to be on my phone, even though I'm the type of person that sort of has notes for everything.
yes,
I'll try to just go back and make those notes, and be as professional and be open minded and have fun at the end of the day, I guess.
yeah. Have fun too. I forgot to mention that. Have fun. Is this the first conference you've ever gone to, Mohammed?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, have fun. I remember when I went to my first conference, I was in sales. I was so nervous. I was really nervous. But my colleagues, it was many years ago, but my colleagues reassured me that I was going to be fine and that I was presenting at the conference too. I had to present. And my knees shook the whole time, but everybody complimented me afterwards. And so they will compliment you as well. The main thing, you're right, is to have fun and then learn and observe. So one day when you have your PhD or you're presenting your dissertation defense content at a conference, you'll want the same respect that you're going to give the participants and also the presenters for this event that you're coming up on. And then, are you still traveling this summer?
Yeah, we're planning to travel. And so I'm hoping that this is the first conference for Muhammad. We were able to add him as a late registration, but I'm hoping that as the conferences come throughout the summer, that he'll have the opportunity to present.
Oh, you hear that, Mohammed?
Yeah, definitely. Fun.
Fun, fun. Yeah, fun with a big grin on your face, but you'll do well. I can tell. And if you have any other questions, please give them to Ms. Browns and she can pass them on to me. But the most important thing is to consider your manners and your etiquette, and then how you want to be treated if you were in a person's position. Just keep in mind that that's what you're going to do too. How you want to be treated is how you would treat other people.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Mohammed, are there any other questions?
For me, no, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And Dr. Brown, just to double check with you, I'm gonna have my backpack, my school backpack, and a carry-on. Those are
Definitely.
covered.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
And
Awesome.
I did not know this when I traveled the first time. There is usually an area at the hotel, the concierge, they'll hold your bags. And there's also a concierge at most conferences that you can leave your bags. Now, if they say there's no place to leave your bag, that no one will watch it, then you have to keep it on you. But I did not know that you can leave packages, because I buy the stuff at conferences, t-shirts, books, and carrying that around is inconvenient, but you can leave your things at a concierge type desk at the conference, and pick them up as you're on your way back to your hotel.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate your attentiveness. I appreciate you asking me to be part of this. And I'm so excited for your students to go to this conference and learn more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us, Lorraine. Again, we'll continue to talk and possibly have something in person, but I really appreciate you taking the time to provide information, really necessary information for our students prior to them traveling to the upcoming conference this Thursday.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, and you're welcome.